Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuvamilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Namaste Saraswati Devi Gavani Pracharine Nivishesha Shanyavani Paschatya Deshatari Jaya Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Nitya Nitai Gaura Hariva Hariva Gaura Hariva Nitai Gaura Hariva Hariva Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Prabhupada Jai Jai Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada.
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pushpani Om Ganatminandasya Jana Jana Salakaya Kakshutamilitam Jana Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Caitanya Manubhistam Stapitam Jana Bhutale Sayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sakandantikam Vanchakalpatubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvayevicha Titanam Kavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hare Krishna. Welcome to Gopinath's Garden of Peace, where the birds, the parrots are so excited that we just had kirtan here, that they're chirping in ecstasy. Either that or someone's trying to steal their fruits and they're having a territorial dispute with the crows. So we're continuing to read, nearing the end of the chapter describing the glories of Madhavendra Puri's devotional service. Now, is it easier or more difficult to concentrate when you're outside like this? Huh? What do you think? What do you think? Yeah, of course. So those who think it's easier can just breeze right into the pastime. And those who think it's more difficult will have to either move a little closer or exert themselves a little more to listen. Or let your mind wander, as you like. So Madhavendra Puri is being glorified by Mahaprabhu, because Mahaprabhu and the other devotees, Mukunda, Jagadananda, and Nityananda Prabhu, and Damodar Pandit, they're in Ramuna on their way to Jagannath Puri, where Mahaprabhu is going to reside. Actually, when Mahaprabhu gets there, he's only going to stay perhaps 2 months before beginning his South Indian tour, but they're going in that direction. Can you imagine when Mahaprabhu goes on his South Indian tour, he didn't take anything with him, because the weather is nice, and no food, no credit cards, no mobile phone, and no, maybe there was a second pair of clothes, maybe, I can't remember now, but nothing, no blankets, no tents, nothing to keep away the tigers. So quite wonderful. And what is the wonder is that it's complete dependence on Krishna. And when one decides I'm going to completely depend on Krishna, then one has to be ready for whatever Krishna gives one and see Krishna's mercy in that. And tomorrow we'll speak a little bit about that when we're speaking about Nityananda Prabhu. But in any case, here Mahaprabhu is traveling towards Jagannath Puri, and Mahaprabhu is glorifying Madhavendra Puri's pastime with Gopinath and Madhavendra Puri's incredible devotional character. So he says, Sri Gopal wanted to show how intensely Madhavendra Puri loved Krishna. So sometimes the tests of a great devotee are exhibited by Krishna to show how great that devotee actually is. It's like it's like taking a test stone. Have you ever seen a test stone for testing gold? Have you ever seen that? They just rub the gold on the stone. You've seen that? No. They rub the gold on the stone, and then if it's actual gold, the stone becomes a golden color in that part where it was rubbed. So one knows the real quality of devotion under the stress of a test. So this is very handy to know. Excuse me. At first, it shows the exalted devotees how pure and great their devotion is, and for ourselves, when we're under stress and when there's a test, we can see how much our devotion holds up, or whether we just become one big fat mind and act like a mind acts. And how does a mind act? It accepts, it rejects, it becomes angry, it blames someone. It fails to see mercy, basically, in what's going on. So this is not easy to do. One has to have deep faith, one has to have trust in Krishna, and one has to neglect one's mind. What bird do you hear right now? Huh? What do you hear? Some hear the crows and some hear the lorikeets. Depends on the mind, really, right? Because both are there. Crow's a little bit demanding, isn't he? Do you know how to get rid of crows? You know the mantra? As long as it's loud, very loud, and nearby them with cymbals. Otherwise they become very attractive. So the tests that Krishna gives his great devotees is really meant to glorify them. This happens with the Braja Gopis when Krishna tells them to leave. They've come all the way in the middle of the night into a dangerous situation. He tells them to leave. They don't leave. They dance, and then Krishna disappears. And their words of prayer, or the Gopi Gita, their words and activities really show the depth of their devotion. And Krishna wanted to hear of their love, so that's another reason why he sometimes, with the great devotees, he turns up the heat, turns the flames of the experience even higher, so that what's really in the heart comes out. The example that I like to give. There's two of one is Pralambasura and one is Putana, because Putana was dressed as such a beautiful young lady, but when the pressure came, she had to assume her real form. So similarly, Pralambasura, when the weight of Balaram was upon his shoulders and he took on the weight of a mountain, then he also had to reveal his real form. So we can be very, very, very nice and very sweet to everyone. But when the pressure's on, sometimes the monster comes out. So, but with the great devotees, there's actually no monster inside. What's inside is an incredibly pure heart, pure and filled with love for Krishna. So, Gopal wanted to show how intensely Madhavendra Puri loved Krishna, and therefore he asked him to go to Nalachala to fetch sandalwood and camphor. And immediately Madhavendra Puri tolerated all discomfort, and he went. And with great trouble, and after much labor, Madhavendra Puri brought the load of sandalwood to Ramuna. However, he was still very pleased. He discounted all the difficulties. One of the troubles was the weight, even though it seems like there were people with him, but the weight of the sandalwood was 82, I can't remember, 82 pounds in kilos. There was a lot of kilos too, like 40 kilos, thank you. 40 kilos they had to carry it. And not only that, when you're doing service, even though you may not be the one who's personally carrying the weight and doing everything, but if it's your offering, there's always going to be the anxiety. Oh, can I get this done for Krishna? Can I get this done for the pleasure of Guru and Vaishnavas? There's always going to be that anxiety. So if one wants liberation from all anxiety, then that will be a disqualification for pure devotional service, because the anxiety that comes naturally with service is practically one's devotional offering. And if one takes it in that way, then I'm doing this for you and your pleasure, and even this anxiety, and anything is tolerable when there's love. Any difficulty becomes an exhibition of pleasure when there's love. And when there's no love, every little thing becomes a discomfort and a difficulty. So bhakti is, of course, devotion, it's devotional service, it's love. I was listening just before to Prabhupada speak about in Vrindavan, sitting in the Radha Damodar temple, and not only were there parrots and crows, but there was also peacocks, and what else? Monkeys. And sometimes, one time you hear Prabhupada going, "Hey!" And then the monkey goes running away, and all the devotees laugh. And sometimes, and then not only there's all the devotees, the people, they just and Prabhupada, while he was speaking, he knew what his service was, and he knew what to say too. So to test the intense love of Madhavendra Puri. So why does this intense love have to be tested? Mostly to show the world what purity is. But we're going to come in a few moments to something very, I found very interesting about what Madhavendra Puri did. So to test the intense love of Madhavendra Puri, Gopal, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, ordered him to bring sandalwood from Nalachala. And when Madhavendra Puri passed this examination, the Lord became very merciful to him. Such behavior, this is an important verse, exhibited in loving service between the devotee. And I'll read it again, and I'm going to ask you what you understand from this verse. Such behavior exhibited in loving service between the devotee and the devotee's lovable object, Sri Krishna, is transcendental. It is not possible for a common man to understand. Common men do not even have the capacity. So what do you understand from that? from that verse about the dealings between Madhavendra Puri and Gopal. Yes, say. I couldn't hear. I couldn't hear.
Extraordinary.
It's extraordinary, yes. Yes, yes. Why is it so difficult for a common person to understand? Yes, but why is it, what will they understand? Or something, but they won't understand it actually what it is. Because what is the faculty? What do we understand by? We understand by our own intelligence, by our own experience. But this has nothing to do with our material intelligence or our material experience. It is like there in the very amazing book that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wrote called Madhurya Kadambini. He's speaking about what each stage of devotional service is like. So he's talking about a very elevated stage when a devotee has such a deep relationship with Krishna and always thinking about Krishna. But then he describes the next stage where that devotee has sakshat darshan. He actually sees Krishna. He actually has the direct experience of Krishna's presence. He sees Krishna's beautiful face, the complexion of his body, the color of his dhoti, the peacock feather on his head. And he says, he faints and goes into complete ecstasy, actually seeing Krishna. And then when Krishna disappears, he wakes up, where are you? Then he falls down to the ground again in ecstasy. So he says that previously in his prayers, he says at that time that previously I compared your complexion to a monsoon cloud and your dhoti, the color of your dhoti, to lightning. But now I see that those descriptions really were hollow. They had nothing to do with your complexion or the color of your dhoti, because he doesn't explain it in detail, but when we think of a monsoon cloud, the color of a cloud filled with rain, we've seen it perhaps, and we have that concept in our minds. But we've seen a material cloud with material rain inside of it, with our material eyes, and we process it through our material mind. So this gives us something to conceive of, but it doesn't actually describe what is transcendental. Because what is transcendental has nothing to do with the land, the realm of matter. So therefore, when we hear of Madhavendra Puri's devotion to Gopal and Gopal's devotion to Madhavendra Puri, we think, oh, this is very nice. They have so much love for each other. Or look at how much Madhavendra Puri wants to serve. And we think in that way, and that's perhaps the best we can do at this stage of our consciousness. Think this is very wonderful. But the actual experience of something that is transcendental, the transcendental relationship between the Lord and his devotees, doesn't really have anything to do with anything in the material world. Again, it is transcendental. So a common men, as Kaviraj Goswami says, do not even have the capacity to understand this. They have no ability. Because all their conceptions, their framework is based on their experiences in this life and in previous lives of the material world. I wonder if in the spiritual world the crows sound sweet.
Are there crows?
Huh?
Are there crows in the spirit?
Yes. Because, you know how I know? Because it says that Krishna, when he was young, before he had his hair cutting ceremony, his hair was tied in the back like the feathers of a crow. So maybe they had feathers of the crows, but no crows. But Just imagine if that was the only thing you could say. For some people, it may be an improvement. But after saying all this about the glories of Madhavendra Puri, Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu read the famous verse of Madhavendra Puri. That verse is just like the moon. It has spread illumination all over the world. Now, what do you remember from that verse, what I just read? Maybe I should read it again, so you all listen carefully. After saying this, Lord Chaitanya read the famous verse of Madhavendra Puri. That verse is just like the moon. It has spread illumination all over the world. So, what do you remember from that? Or anything struck you? Yes. Okay, so what's the first question? What's the first question? The verse is just like the moon. Oh yeah, okay, your first question is, what is the verse? You want to hear it. But it's going to take a little time before he says it. But he wants to build up your anticipation and explain something about the verse, so you really want to hear it. But my first thought was, when you think of something that spreads illumination, a body of a planet or a star or whatever in the sky, what do you usually think of? The moon or the sun? The sun. So why is it compared to the moon? Why is this verse compared to the moon and not the sun? It's cooling, it's soothing. The sun, and we may experience it today and the next day and the next day and the next day. You can't even go out in it. You feel like your skin is burning some of the time. So even though it gives illumination, it also burns. And it's difficult to tolerate. But the moon, on the other hand, is very, very soothing, especially to the mind. The moon is the Lord of the mind. It's just like the moon, and it has spread illumination all over the world. And it is famous, and Madhavendra Puri spoke it. Would you like to hear what it is? Should I read the next verse or read that verse? At the same time, I can't do it, especially if they're on different pages. Okay, we'll read the next verse. Grassite yaidshi malaya jasara gandhabade taiche slokera vichara. Continuous rubbing increases the aroma, the fragrance of Malaya sandalwood. The more you rub it, the more you can experience the fragrance. Similarly, consideration of this verse, if one actually vichar, when you try to discriminate and understand it deeply and think about it, it increases one's understanding of its importance. So it's soothing, and also the more you meditate upon it and think about it, one understands more and more deeply the significance, the importance of the verse. Would you like to hear it? Not yet. There's more of its glories. Ratnagana madhye aiche kastubamani rasa kavya madhye taiche esloka gani. As the kastuba mani is considered the most precious of valuable stones, this verse is similarly considered the best of poems dealing with the mellows, the rasa of devotional service. So it's going to reveal something very, very special. And the more you meditate upon it and think about it and more deeply you try to understand it, the more one understands its importance, and one will also naturally understand its sweetness. Actually, this verse was spoken by Srimati Radharani herself. And by her mercy only was it manifest in the words of Madhavendra Puri. So the importance of the verse has increased by Krishnadas Kaviraj's explanations that are going on. Only Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu has tasted the poetry of this verse. He really has the capacity. Only he has the capacity to understand its excellence and how deep it is, to relish it on the deepest level. No fourth man is capable of understanding it. So who is the man, meaning person? Because Srimati Radharani is not a man. So who are the four, or the three, that have understood it, or relished it deeply? Who is the first one? No. Radharani. Radharani, Madhavendra Puri, and Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Madhavendra Puri, Shesha Kale E Shloka Patite Patite, Siddha Prapti Hoila Purira Slokera Sahati. Madhavendra Puri recited this verse again and again at the end of his material existence. Thus, uttering this verse, he attained the ultimate goal of life. So how powerful it is. And this verse will give us a hint of what the internal consciousness of Madhavendra Puri was like, because we've heard about all the things he did. But what he did that so much pleased Gopal was a manifestation of his internal mood. And the external, doing the activity without the internal mood, wouldn't have been pleasing. I also heard Prabhupada say that this morning, that if you offer Krishna, and he said a plate, what he was referring to as a plate of prasadam, and Krishna, he has no inclination to accept it, unless one is a devotee. And Prabhupada was quoting Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam Yomam Bhakta Prayachati Taraham Bhakti Paritam Asami, I will accept it if it is offered with bhakti. So that which pleased Gopal so much and Gopinath so much was the bhakti by which the activity was done in, the consciousness the activity was done in. And so far the activity was what was described, all the things he did. He underwent so much trouble, but if there's someone you could be paid so much, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to do something that's inconvenient, and you'll do it. And you do it well, perhaps. But the external activity doesn't really reveal the consciousness. So what was it again that made the external activity so much appreciated by Gopal? It was the consciousness that it was done within. And what was that consciousness? So this is going to give us this verse is going to give us a hint of the consciousness that Madhavendra Puri performed his service in. And at the end of his life, he recited this verse and tasted its sweetness on a very deep level continuously. In Antya Leela, chapter 8, this verse is also referred to again. Because the same verse at the end of his life, Madhavendra Puri was saying this verse, and he was lamenting that he wasn't with Krishna, that he was feeling separation from Krishna. He was lamenting in that way, completely on the transcendental level. And one of his disciples, whose name was Ramachandra Puri, came to him. And he said, "Why are you lamenting? This is the time when you're leaving this world. Instead of lamenting, you should be thinking about Brahman." And Madhavendra Puri said, "Get out of here. Go away. I don't know what will happen to me if I leave this world looking at your face, thinking of you. Go immediately." And by displeasing his spiritual master in this way, by trying to correct him and displeasing him in this way, he became a great offender and became critical to even of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And it became an impersonalist, or he was an impersonalist. And on the other hand, the example is shown in that same chapter that Ishwara Puri, in a simple way, Shri Ishwara Puri served in a very humble and menial way. He served Madhavendra Puri, and he was blessed. Madhavendra Puri blessed him. And as a result of that blessing, he had exalted consciousness, and he had Mahaprabhu as his disciple. So here's the verse. Now I'm not going to speak about it now, but I'm going to read the verses after it. And here, and we can see through the words of Kaviraj Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's personal reaction upon hearing this verse. So here's the verse. Ayi dina dayadranata he maturanata kada avalokshase hridayam tada lokakataram dayata brahmati kim karomyaham. So this verse was spoken by Srimati Radharani, and it came through the mouth of Madhavendra Puri. It says, "O my Lord, Ai Dina Dayadri, O most merciful Master," that's Nata He. Mathura, merciful, you're the most merciful to those who have fallen. O Master of Mathura Nata. He's just calling out with full separation. When shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. O most beloved one, what shall I do now? O my Lord, O most merciful Master, O Master of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Because of my not seeing you, my agitated heart has become unsteady. O most beloved one, what shall I do now? So this is the mood of Srimati Radharani when Krishna has gone to Mathura. Now, what can we do to understand what this mood is like? We can just watch Mahaprabhu's reaction and get some idea of what the actual experience of this verse is. Now there's a wonderful purport by Srila Prabhupada here, and he explains that this feeling of separation that Srimati Radharani had for Krishna is the mood that Mahaprabhu was experiencing and taught. And this is the essence of the method taught by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, his Sampradaya. And the six Goswamis taught the same thing, and on and on and on to us. This is the method of achieving love for Krishna. But we'll read the purport, Krishna willing, next week. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited this verse, he immediately fell to the ground unconscious. He was overwhelmed and had no control over himself. Just the hearing the verse put him in such an internal state of separation from Krishna that he fell to the ground, out of control. Not that I think I'll now fall to the ground. No. Completely out of control. His love for Krishna in the mood of separation was so strong. He was overwhelmed and had no control over himself. When Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fell to the ground in ecstatic love, Lord Nityananda quickly took him upon his lap. Crying, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then got up again. Exhibiting ecstatic emotions, the Lord began to run here and there, making resounding noises, loud noises. Sometimes he laughed, sometimes he cried, and sometimes he danced and sang. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could not recite the whole verse. He simply said, Ai Dina, repeatedly. Thus, he could not speak, and profuse tears were in his eyes. Trembling, perspiring, jubilant tears, shock, fading of the bodily luster, disappointment, moroseness, loss of memory, pride, joy, and humility were all visible in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's body. This verse uncovered the door of ecstatic love, and when it was exhibited, all the servants of Gopinath saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dance in ecstasy. And this, in Antya Lila, this is spoken about quite a few times, that when Mahaprabhu would dance, and mostly it was spoken about in Rath Yatra, in relationship to the Rath Yatra. But when he would dance, everyone would, the Sanskrit, Hindi, Bengali word is chamatkar. Means, what is chamatkar? Astonishing, amazing, awesome. But this is unexpectedly, amazingly, astonishingly, what other word in English? Miraculous? Almost, but not quite. Yes, miraculous, but chamatkar means this is amazing, magical, astonishing, that's the best word for it. So Mahaprabhu's dancing was astonishing when he was in this mood, especially. When it was exhibited, all the servants of Gopinath saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu dance in ecstasy. Deke Prabodha Premanata. Gopinath Sevaka Deke Prabodha Premanata. They saw him dancing, and they were amazed. And when many people crowded around Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because no one had ever seen anything like this, he regained his external senses. He composed himself and stopped his external manifestation of his ecstasy ended. He controlled his regained his external senses. In the meantime, the offering to the deity had been finished, and there was a resounding arti performance. So all this happened at the same time, and then the arti began, and the offering was over. And what was being offered? It was to Gopinath. It was the Gopinath Kheer. So when the deities were laid down to rest, the pujari came out of the temple and offered all 12 pots of sweet rice to Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu. When all the pots of sweet rice, remnants left by Gopinath, were placed before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he became very pleased. And in order to feed the devotees, he accepted 5 of them. Why did he accept 5 pots?
There were 4 devotees with him.
Yes. There were 12 pots. And what would you have done? Save some for later. Give some to my grandmother, which is also a nice thought, but Mahaprabhu only took those 5 and distributed them to the devotees. The 7 remaining pots were pushed forward and delivered to the priests. So look at the etiquette. The priest's mood was, we're giving you everything. And Mahaprabhu's mood is, I'm taking just what I need, and you take the rest. He took what he needed, and it was including the distribution. So the 7 remaining pots were pushed forward and delivered to the priests. Then the 5 pots of sweet rice the Lord had accepted were distributed amongst the 5 devotees, and they ate the prasadam, panchajani, the 5 devotees, including Mahaprabhu himself. And being identical with the Gopinath deity, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already tasted and eaten the pots of sweet rice. Yet just to manifest devotional service, he again ate the pots of sweet rice as a devotee. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed that night at the temple, engaged in the congregational chanting. In the morning, after seeing Mangal Arati performed, he departed. In this way, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally tasted with his own mouth the transcendental qualities of Gopalji, Gopinath, and Sri Madhavendra Puri. So he was relishing the Lord and his relationship with his devotees. He was tasting, and then the sweet rice too. So he tasted the sweet rice with his mouth, and he tasted the pastime by speaking it with his mouth. And Krishna's. So he tasted what? The transcendental qualities of Gopalji, Gopinath, and Sri Madhavendra Puri. So what was Gopinath's qualities? What did he taste about Gopinath? What did Gopinath do? He stole the sweet rice for him. He was so kind. And then he went to the pujari in a dream to tell him what he had done. And the pujari came out inspired and said, "You are so fortunate. He who is Madhavendra Puri, come forward. You are so fortunate because the deity has stolen a pot of sweet rice for you." And Gopinath and Gopal, he had come to Madhavendra Puri personally to feed him. He'd come 2 times in dreams, wanted to save him difficulty. And then Madhavendra Puri on the other side was relishing the relationship between that Gopal's affection and Gopinath's affection for him, which was in reciprocation for his relationship, his loving relationship with these 2 deities. So what's being relished is the sweetness of the exchanges. The sweetness of exchanges, rasa, is what is relishable. And in the material world, the same point. Everyone is interested in relationship, in tasting the sweetness of relationship, and the sweetnesses of those relationships. One can look at it from the point of view of an impersonalist and say, this is just Maya, it's just illusion, the relationships in this world. But then the other way to look at it is that this just, if the relationship causes so much happiness in this world, just imagine how much happiness is when Krishna is the object of the Vishya, the object of the relationship, and one loves with a full heart. So Mahaprabhu was relishing this exchange, the exchanges of Madhavendra Puri with Gopal and Gopinath, and Gopal and Gopinath with Madhavendra Puri. And he was tasting the sweetness of the rasa, of the exchange that they had on the transcendental level. And that put him into so much ecstasy, especially this verse. The mood, the internal mood of Madhavendra Puri put him into so much ecstasy. He went mad, he was dancing in the mood of separation. He captured the mood of Madhavendra Puri, which was his mood, Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radharani in separation. And he went into to ecstasy that no one had ever seen before. And this is the gift of Mahaprabhu and the means to attain that gift too. And then the chapter is about to end. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj says, thus I have described both the transcendental glories of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's affection for his devotees and the highest limit of ecstatic love of God. Bhakta Prema Simha, the highest limit has been described. Kaviraj Goswami describes the highest limit of love for Krishna. So different religions of the world, they teach how to have a relationship with the Supreme. And how does one judge? We will say that they're all good, but there's also a gradation between them. So how does one judge which ones are on a higher and which ones on a lower level? Because everyone will naturally think their own path is the highest level. But how does one judge it? It's by, they all bring us in relationship with the Supreme. But the intimacy of the relationship is the standard. How close one actually can get to the Supreme Lord. That's the standard by which one judges the quality of the religious experience. So here Kaviraj says in the almost very close to the end of the chapter, the highest limit, this is the highest limit of ecstatic love of God, that where one is so consumed by the desire to be with one's beloved, that that the ecstasies of that are impossible for the material mind to understand. But we can understand how overwhelming they are by the external manifestation of those ecstasies exhibited by Mahaprabhu. Now here's the blessing for all those who have heard this chapter. Shraddha yukta hoy iha shuni yei jana Sri Krishna charane se paya premadana. One who hears this narration with faith and devotion attains the treasure of love of Godhead in the form at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. And then Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj ends this chapter, as he ends most chapters, Sri Rupa Raghunatha Pade Yarasa Caitanya Caritamrta Kahe Krishna Das. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishnadas, narrate Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Caitanya Caritamrta, Madhya Lila, 4th chapter, describing Sri Madhavendra Puri's devotional service. Thank you. Any questions or comments? So we'll go and see Lord Jagannath.
Very sweet.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah, but it is the illumination of the world. Everything else is darkness in that sense. And even though right now it seems that it's very limited, the illumination this verse gives, or what to speak of even the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. How many people does it affect in the 6 billion plus people in this world? But it's not over yet. 60 years ago, there was this movement in Bengal only, practically speaking. And 500 years ago, it was 2 or 3 or 4 or 500 devotees or 600 devotees who were all associating with Mahaprabhu. But yet, even though it's not fully appreciated, still it is the illumination of the world, and it provides the illumination of the world. Otherwise the world is a dark place, increasingly dark. That's how I would answer that question. So there's really 2 parts of the answer. One is, it's not over yet. Let's see what the future is. Maybe we won't see, but let's see. And the other part is, it is the illumination of a dark world. And it gives the illumination in this dark world. And our appreciation of it at this point may not be great. But the more that one becomes deeper oneself in understanding the meaning of this verse and the mood that it's spoken in by Madhavendra Puri and Srimati Radharani, the more one's own heart is illuminated. Also, and one more one understands its importance. Thank you. It describes it even more, not even more, but more in that 8th chapter of Antya Lila. And it's like Malaya sandalwood. Does anyone remember what the analogy was? Why was it like Malaya sandalwood? That verse? More fragrance, the more you rub. So what is the remainder of the analogy? The more you rub the verse? What is the rubbing meaning? Huh? The more you think about it, try to understand it, speak about it, meditate upon it, enter into the mood of it, the more wonderful it becomes. The more you understand not the more wonderful it becomes, the more you enter into the wonder of the verse and how amazing it is. Because it really, in the 8th chapter in Antya-lila, it really describes how this verse is the essence of the gift of Mahaprabhu. And it says earlier in Adi-lila that Madhavendra Puri, before Madhavendra Puri, this mood didn't exist in this world. So he brought the mood of the love of Radha and Krishna into this world in the mood of separation. And it didn't exist in the world before, or in the sampradaya of Sri Madhavendra, of Sri Padmadvacharya. Okay, if there are any comments? Yes.
I actually wondered if the verse about the moon illuminating the world was because the verse prior to that, it was saying that the devotees can appreciate what Lord Chaitanya was saying to Madhavendra Puri, whereas the commoners, they do not understand. So to me that meant that the moon is being appreciated by the devotees, whereas the darkness, that's what the commoners are in.
Yes.
That's what I got out of it.
But it had spread illumination all over the world.
So the illumination is all over the world, but there's some that are still people are in darkness. So it's still there, it's just that they're too blind to see it, to just see the effulgence.
But the illumination is there, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And interesting how the moon comes at night. So there's also darkness that accompanies the moon, as you're pointing out. So most people are in the darkness, but it gives illumination. It has spread illumination all over the world, and one can see that all over the world people have Caitanya Caritamrta at this point also, looking at it in that way. Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Sri Madhavendra Puri Bhat Ki Jai. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sri Caitanya Caritamrta Ki Jai. Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami